Firstly, I want to say hi to Munetisi. I just want to say my friend Munetisi Sibego is an amazing producer, songwriter. I've listened to his songs before. I've worked with him based in Pretoria in South Africa. I just want to give a plug out to him. Just dropped a new project called Born to Worship. If you just Google Born to Worship, I Know Christ is the name of the song. It's just an amazing song. And, I just wanted to say, look, it's an amazing song. Listen to it. Get that, get the, when the project drops finally, please just get it. Also, I want to thank Bell Sunday for joining us. Let me tell you how faithful Bell was. He looked at the flyer and logged in at 4 a.m. instead of 4 p.m. cat. And so he was in early in the morning, when nobody was there. So he was the first one here. So I just want to thank Bell for the sacrifice you have made. For those of you, Bell comes from a very musical family, and if you're based in the UK, you probably have heard of his cousin Emily Sunday. It's from the same musical family where he's coming from, and he just loves God. And I've worked with him, and I just want to thank him for the sacrifice he has done. A few other people I've seen. I see Bob there. I see a lot of people who I've worked with in different, I see Wongi, I see Emmett, I see a lot of people who have just come to join us. I just want to thank you for coming. Before I introduce our speaker for today, I want to say a few things. If you can just bear with me for like less than 5 minutes, I promise I probably won't be more than 5 minutes. I just want to say a few things. As we meet in different churches and as we do different things, I have come to the conclusion that there are three things which can really stifle up worship. If you want to create an environment of worship, you need to seriously look at these three things. The first one is tradition. And we can see that in the UK here, where you have a lot of these traditional churches which are lying empty and dormant because they decided that if you walk in at 9 p.m., you find they're all kneeling down at the same time. And if you walk in at another time, you find them doing something at the same time. And they're just sticking to tradition. And because of that, they haven't given room to the Holy Spirit, and the church becomes a dry monument of a building. And if you trump traditions more than you trump the move of God, it becomes very difficult to experience something new. Another thing which I find in churches is culture, whether it's culture coming from the people of the country or whether it's culture coming from the church, what the church has instituted. Culture determines a lot what's allowed to move around. I mean, loads of people who have been into different countries, you've been in those services where you just feel that God really wants to move in a different place. You kneel down and start praying, and the whole service stops and everybody's looking at you because you realize that in that culture, they have created a culture where we're not comfortable doing that type of worship. So culture can really break your worship, it can really detract from your worship. But the third one, and for me, the most significant one, is doctrine. Doctrine is one of the things which will prevent you worshiping God in his entirety. And I want to say this before I talk about doctrine. I want to say this is a very controversial one, but it's the truth. Let me just go to one extreme. Let me pick an occult out of Rwanda, and I'll show you how, because of their doctrine, it's difficult for them to worship God. Let me give you a good example. Say, for example, the Jehovah's Witnesses. Because of the doctrine they possess, it's almost impossible for them to worship God for who he is. Let me give you a good example. The three fundamental doctrines is they have neglected the Godhead, and by neglecting the Godhead in their doctrine, what they have done is they have reduced the Holy Spirit, who is the person who is the stand between, who enables us, the comforter, to worship God. They have reduced him to a wind. They have reduced Christ to a lesser status than God. And even more subtle and key to all of this is they have reduced God to a person who doesn't know the future. They say, if God knew the future, he wouldn't have allowed sin to come in. But by demoting God for this all-knowing God, how can you worship God Almighty? How can you truly worship God Almighty if you reduce him off that place where he is God all-knowing? So how can you truly worship God? I can give you another good example. There's a heretic in South Africa called Bushiri who teaches that you can get anointing from angels like Angel Gabriel. And we all know worshiping of angels is a definite no-no. We do not worship angels. And that was the first original sin. Before Eve took the fruit, the devil had fallen from the pedestal because he had exalted himself. So that is why whenever you see an angel show up in the Bible and people sit down to worship him, they stop them immediately because they realize the sin which will happen when you exalt an angel to the position of God. It's the same as worshiping an idol. And Bushiri a few years ago filled the stadium with 150,000 people, all there to receive this famous anointing from Angel Gabriel. And truly, how can you worship God if you if you put created beings in the position of God? And so as we go on to the meeting, this is my 5 minutes up. I just want to say, guys, analyze the doctrines which are being taught. Look at what prevents you from worship because of the belief system. I can give you a few examples. Is it because you have underrated the cross because you have introduced new doctrines of deliverance? And you understand that you cannot truly worship God without understanding what happened at the cross? Is it because you're so stuck up with this prosperity and being rich that you've realized that God is not your Santa Claus, he's not your genie to give you the stuff you want, he's there to be worshipped, and he's not there to be, your rich dad to throw money towards you. He's there to be worshipped. So ask yourselves, what are the things which are preventing you to worship? And that's the simple thing I wanted to say. As we go on further, I will break down this into more details. But so that's me for today. Now, before I announce our speaker for today, one other thing I want to do is I want to say, guys, next week, same time, we're in for a treat. We have Noah Robinson, who I have followed for a while, and I was so excited that he has agreed to come speak to us. So guys, invite your friends. For those of you who don't know who Noah Robinson is, just Google him. He's just done a new song with Leland. If you just Google Leland and Noah Robinson, he's agreed to come talk to us. He runs a flagship event called the Revival Worship Encounters, and he's worked with people like Israel Houghton, Ron Canoli, Matt Redman, Tim Hughes, Hillsong, and Leland, like I've just explained. I mean, just Google him and you will know who he is. And there's a lot he has to unpack about worship. And I'm so excited. I'm looking forward to actually hear him speak because, it's just going to be an exciting setting. If we can make it next weekend. He's signed to Integrity. And guys, we've been listening to Integrity music from the times of Ron Canoli and Don Moyen. And this is just going to be a fantastic time. Now, before I go further, I want to introduce my friend. I've known this guy now for a few years now. We've done projects together. We have fought, we have loved, we have hugged. But one thing I love about Joe is no matter what happens, you can never, ever sever our friendship. You know what I mean? It's such a strong bond we have. And a lot of people just don't understand us, but we get on really, really well. We've done a couple of projects together and we're constantly talking, calling each other, encouraging each other, and doing a lot of stuff together. I was going to give a bit of a plug of what he's done and what he's worked for, but I'll just let him do it himself. I want to thank God for him, and I want to thank God for what he's doing in his life, because I mean, his work. He worked with both huge circular South African artists and local South African artists, but he chooses to still stay gospel. He chooses to still stay original. I've got his details. If anybody wants to work with him, please, I've got his email address and his phone number. please get in touch with me or Lisa, and we will get this information to you. Again, like I said, he is my friend and he keeps it gospel. And this guy's performed all over the world, and yeah, I'll just hand over to him. I can't see his picture right now, but I know he's somewhere there among all of them. Or I'm just going to mute myself and let him talk. Thank you very much.
Oh, well, hello. Thank you, Solomon. Thank you for inviting me, and thank you for this opportunity. And the friendship that we have has always been beautiful, and has always been able to open up lots of platforms for each other. I'm glad you introduced us as friends that fight a lot. You being the difficult one in the friendship, but I'll let that go. And thank you, Lisa, for the handover. I really appreciate this. I have followed the previous presentation by Marissa, which was fantastic. I think Marissa did an excellent job. And I enjoyed your music today as well. I think I would want to get into the business of the day, but let me tell you a little bit about myself. Born and raised in South Africa. I was born in the northern part of South Africa, which is Tzaneen. I have quite a colorful life, and if I stay too long on it, it might take over what I really wanted to present today. By colorful, I mean that from my personal life to my spiritual life to my musical life, nothing really came across straightforward as, just as in, excuse me. Oh, there we go. Nothing really came across very straightforward as moving from point A to point B, from point B to point C. A small example of that would be that I was born in the northern part of South Africa, a small town called Tzaneen. At the age of 10, I was adopted by a pastor who lived in Johannesburg. Johannesburg would be our London. Thank you very much. Would be our big city, and where lots of things happen. So at the age of 10, I was adopted by him. Well, I had already picked up the instrument. I was already playing the piano at 9, and I lived with him. And, by the age of 12, I was already traveling the country. I mean, literally cross country with different groups and bands as a keyboard player and as a pianist here and there. And that grew into my life as kind of a path that I followed, because many of would happen based on my musical development. And so I then moved on. I mean, by the age of 16, I was touring the world, really. I was already touring America and the Caribbean. And I mean, at some point, we would do 4 tours to the States in a year. I think for a good 7 years, we were doing 4 tours. Most of them would be about 2 months, a month or so, a month to 2 months of touring, just in touring, really. And so by colorful, I mean a lot of the things that happened to my life, or that I would put in my profile, if I should say, would really be for the purposes of putting it on a profile. I'll put it on a profile, but it's really God orchestrated, and I wouldn't really take much credit. Then by the time I was settling into the music industry, that would be when I was about 19 or so. That's when I had finished my school, and I was really focused on music and going professional into the music. Then I ventured into different styles of music, which then led me into different secular industry platforms, and the industry was becoming bigger at the time. I then moved into music directing, a lot of shows, a lot of events. And I then, from then onwards, I moved into music directing, award ceremonies in South Africa. I managed to music direct one of the biggest, which is the Metro FM Awards. I then, found my footing mostly in the performance side of things, where then I really moved into it heavily. I managed to get into producing actual shows, from really not just music directing it to really producing the show and putting it together. And that has been very, I want to say, a powerful or a very unexpected growth in its own way. I never expected myself to be moving in that direction when I first started as a pianist. Along the way, I met with Pastor Benjamin Dewey, and in fact, I played for him in 2 different seasons of my life. I played for him right just before I came out of school. At about 17 years old, I started playing for Pastor Benjamin Dewey, traveling with him, and then I paused a bit because I started traveling with a new band. That's the band that I started traveling with to the States. And for maybe 4 years or so. Then I went back to Pastor Benjamin Dewey, Explosion. That's when I went back to him and I started touring with him again. Praise Explosion then went on for 2 cycles. The first Praise Explosion we recorded was in the studio. The second Praise Explosion, then I was afforded the opportunity to produce it with him. So I managed to produce that second one with him, and I milked as much as I could. I milked a lot of information from him, and he's been such a blessing. Moving on, years later, I had met up with Pastor Soli Mahlangu. I had known him as a young boy. I had met him several times as a young child who was really interested into coming into the music industry. And at some point in his career, we met again, and he wanted me to music direct his events and his shows. And I did that. I've been doing that for 7 years now, really focused on his tours and his preaching engagements as well. That's where I also travel with him. So that has been a blessing on its own, in a different angle. Then on the circular platform, because of my experience in music directing events and award ceremonies, I then made contact with a lot of secular people that were very interested in my style of operating, in my style of arranging and stuff. And that led me into working with people like KB. KB is a pop/R&B artist in South Africa, who's also a famous TV personality. She's an actor already. Actually, originally she was an artist, a singer, and then she ventured into acting. So she's going back into singing again, and so we are in that journey. So I really didn't want to spend too much time on that, but I wanted to just show a little bit of how colorful my life is, how a lot of things did not pan out the way I thought it would have panned out. But I want to get to the business of the day. But hold on. Let me also add this part. I think this is very important. That I'm a born again child of God. I got saved at and okay. So I was brought up in the church, in the Assemblies of God Church in South Africa. Now the Assemblies of God Church in South Africa is in two folds. There's the International Assemblies of God, and there's the Assemblies of God. We call it Assemblies of God back to God. And that's a subject for another day. I think Solomon was handling the subject of tradition just a minute ago. It's a similar case. It's a similar case where we separate the two churches based on that. So I was brought up in the Church of Assemblies, in the Assemblies of God, and most of my traveling in the early days was purely because of the pastors that were really nurturing me and walking with me through these seasons. And when that season, when my movements were happening geographically, I never lost touch with the Assemblies of God. To this day, I'm still part of the Assemblies of God. Though I'm now with the Assemblies of God International, but I'm still part of the Assemblies of God. And so with that, I wanted to connect it with this, that worship in my life has been kind of the cord that holds everything together. It holds it together in terms of my music, my music ministry. It holds it together in terms of my spirituality. Holds it together in terms of my upbringing. But it's never been there's never been a moment where I could have lost my footing on worship, purely because even when I traveled the world with secular music, my Sundays were dedicated to church. My Sundays were dedicated to my pastors would always know where I'm at, and my pastors and my leaders, my worship leaders, would be very instrumental in how to navigate, in teaching me how to navigate through this. I worked with a very famous pastor that I hope you would recognize. His name is Pastor Lionel Peterson. Pastor Lionel Peterson in South Africa would be somebody we look up to as a senior in the worship ministry. He's been a worship team leader for a church called Rhema Bible Church in South Africa, which is really almost our biggest church in the charismatic. And I managed to sit closely with him, and he managed to teach me a lot closely, and invested a lot in terms of what worship is and how to carry myself in that field. So I've been blessed to be able to explore music professionally, very strongly. At the same time, to be able to embrace my gift and use it for the kingdom of God consistently. That I've never been at a position where I struggled to serve God. So with that, these are some of the observations I've made, and I thought it would be beautiful to share with everybody today. So the first thing that came to mind when the subject came up, worship and production, was that it all begins with a song. I think the first important thing is a song, and I'm not in any way going to touch on what Marissa handled in the previous episode, because I think she really did a very good job there. I want to handle it on the basis of from the angle of production, from the angle of technicalities, and how it really should sink in. So I believe it starts with a song. What I mean by that is that a song is basically lyrics and melody put together. At any point when we want to have a presentation of some sort in a musical space, we cannot neglect the importance of melody, the importance of lyrics, and what I'm hoping to achieve is to show the importance of the worship leader, the worship singer, the worship minister, the importance of putting lyrical content that speaks to the people that you're with, the space you're in, the direction you want to take. This is what I mean by that. One of the most important things about having to write a good song is that the content itself must never miss the actual objective of the song. Meaning that if we are writing a worship song, worship to God, there's a thin line between worshiping God in lyrics and complaining or moaning and worrying about things. And that should be really clarified. It should be clear in a space, in the creative space of writing. When you write, as you write the song, be clear as to where the direction of the song is going to. That is something that I recognize, and I see how there's a few mistakes that happen in our creative space as we're writing the song before we even present it. That sometimes we're writing songs that are not word-based. Sometimes we're writing songs that are not. If you're going to write a worship song, you will need to know that. You will need to know the craft of the tabernacle. You need to know where you are at in terms of the song itself that is to render worship to God. So I think it's we already struggle there when we're not clear enough into what the song is meant to achieve. So I would encourage a lot of singers to really get to writing. And for you to write, you need to invest the time in reading the word. You need to read the word. You need to spend time with the Lord for you to be able to get to it, because you won't be able to bring out what you don't have. So it has to start with you. You must spend the time. You must invest the time and get that right first. So songwriting comes out as a very crucial space, because we can produce a song, we can arrange a song, but if there's no meat to it, there's no meat to it. There's no content to it. So there's little we can do if the song is not already written well. We have to write it well. We have to, before we can even arrange it, we've got to write it well. that it must be able to achieve the right objective. So I really encourage that we'd spend as much time as possible to write songs. It's almost like riding a bike. If you spend the time, if you invest the time and you do your best in getting to understand how songwriting works, and you investigate and you read the word and you will get it right. Song number 1 may not sound right. Maybe song number 5 may not sound really great, but trust me, as you keep writing songs, it does get there. It gets to a place where it becomes natural. It starts making sense. So songwriting is very important. Let me then move on to the second thing, and I would appreciate some questions very soon. But let me move on to the next place. When we discuss production, we will have to discuss the producer himself, and let's talk about what producers do really. A producer would generally be the visionary of the song, or the visionary of the full project itself. But even if we're talking about the song, there is a place of definition that is needed. We need to know what the song is supposed to sound like, and usually the producer will have that. The producer will be able to define that this song has lyrical content that speaks about the glory of God, but it's got a pop sound that can be translated into this direction for the purposes of achieving the message, or for the purposes of embracing the singer that's singing it. So the visionary would be the producer in this instance, that he will be the guy that will be able to say, where is the final destination? How do we know we have arrived at the final destination? Producer would, if I were to give him a sort of let me say an analogy, really, he would probably be the guy that decides that today we are baking a carrot cake or we're baking a chocolate cake. He would be the guy that actually has the picture that we can all face, we can all look towards. Then let me give then the next person that's important in this position then would be the music director. The music director is the hands-on guy. This is the guy that really then finally says, okay, we are making a carrot cake. Because we're making a carrot cake, that means I need to have these many ingredients. I need to have this these are the many things that are needed for us to be able to achieve that. The music director would operate based on what the producer has laid across, what the producer has directed us to work towards, because it's not his place. The music director doesn't have to worry about what if the final product doesn't work. It's not his problem. His problem is, I need to make the final product the way it was designed. So in that way, the music director will then align how the music should be played, how the singers should sing, how the main artist should present the song. That's the music director who really gets his hands dirty and get it to work. He will organize the rehearsals and put put more emphasis on what needs to work and what is struggling, what he feels is not really adding up. Accordingly, he will work on that. That's the music director. And the music director is probably one of the most key people in putting a production together. Then we have the musicians, the singers. The musicians and the singers will then have to execute the job, really get the job done. But here is the most important thing for me that I found in my experience, that we can work on all these things. But if the musicians and the singers do not connect with the music accordingly, then we will lose the project. We will lose the effort that we put in. By that, this is what I mean by that. One, we have to admit at a certain point that sister so and so is not fit to handle the song today, or sister so and so is not really a singer. She's passionate about gospel music. She's passionate about the worship experience, really, but she may not need to be on stage and do this. I know that and I've seen it in different. I at some point I thought it was an African thing, but it's not an African thing. I've seen it in different places that we are very sweet and kind, and we don't want to hurt people's feelings, and we are we're really gentle on this matter. But it's unfortunate that it's probably the most crucial part, because whatever preparation we may put across, we can go all out trying to get the work prepared. But if the person that's supposed to bring it out doesn't have the ability to bring it out, we've lost it. We've lost the whole show itself. We've lost the whole production. We've lost the whole objective. If that person cannot bring it out, unfortunately, they cannot bring it out. And what we can do as children of God, brother to brother, sister to sister, we can encourage each other and say, look, for now, this is not working. Go work on yourself. These are the things you should look into. These are the type of songs you should look into. This is how you should exercise your voice. This is the with love, we will be able to give you direction as to how to work on it. But unfortunately, we found ourselves compromising on this element. And the result of it is that when we compromise the output, never forget that we are not the only ones that are going to benefit from the output. Even the world is going to see the very output at some point. And the world will be able to see that, oh man, is this what they call worship? The people are not even singing on key, or the music is not right. So we are, I'm also trying to say we are not representing God the way that we should, all because we compromised in the preparation stages and said, no, but let's just let sister so and so lead the song, and let's just she loved God and she really, really is committed. She's always there for the team. And I think those type of things we should really, really leave. I would want to give it back to the worship leaders to really, really, really deal with it. It's really important that we clean that part up. There's places to be modest, but not on places that are really, really compromising and very, very dangerous in a certain way. So the musicians, the singers have to have the capability to handle the job. They need to have that. They are a very important, because they're a very important part of the whole puzzle. Because if they cannot handle what the design of the song has been, then we didn't need a producer, we didn't need a music director. We should have just gone up on stage and do as we please. So there was no need for preparation if we're going to get it wrong at the point of execution. Then I know I might touch on a very sensitive one here, but one of the things that's a lot of talented musicians, very, very talented, but live a life that is not really a life of a worshiper. And we are caught up in a place where you have to decide that you have to make a decision. Do I keep him here and ignore his lifestyle, but then it affects everybody else that's around and that's working with him. That's a very sensitive subject for me to handle, and I'm open to the fact that I may not have all the answers to this, because I want to believe that it's got a lot to do with it may not be just one word answer. It's got a lot to do with what the person is struggling with, what the person is going through, what kind of counseling they need. Do they need the pastor to go to walk a certain journey with them? I think that's a conversation that is far deeper than just music presentation, music production, worship. It's far deeper than that. But we are not ignoring it. But for the purposes of this presentation, I would want to dwell on the fact that let's not forget that, like I think Marissa mentioned the other day, that it's worship is a lifestyle. We will not forget that, and we will also not forget that we need to be skillful in what we do. We need to be able to bring across excellence in our musical presentations, in our musical efforts. So I say that to say it is a thorny issue. It is an existing issue that a lot of music directors and a lot of worship leaders are struggling with. But that needs the wisdom of God for you to be able to work it out as per case. But I have to advocate for skillful musicians. I have to advocate for that, because at the end of the day, it's got to sound right. It has to sound right. And then I wanted to handle one more thing before I can open up for questions. I would love to handle some questions. There is a very important group of people that are very, I think Solomon would know what I'm talking about. There's a group of people in the whole picture of production and ministry that are kind of ignored, and those are engineers, and sometimes cameramen fall into this category. It's important for us to recognize that ultimately we are all a team, and ultimately we are all working towards the same objective. So that means we are all focused on achieving this goal from minute one until the last minute. And sometimes we tend to ignore the importance of our engineers and our cameramen. These guys can sometimes not even be on site whilst we are busy worshiping on stage, and the engineer can just leave presets on and he takes a step out of the engineering booth, or the cameraman can just look at it and check, oh, you know what, I've got it on still, I am good, let me just quickly move around. I've learned in my experience that even that person that may seem to be less important in the whole puzzle would have an effect if they put more energy, more thought to what they're doing. They have a very important role in the ultimate goal. Now we would be worshiping on stage, and the engineer is not really in sync with us. Him not being in sync with us could cost us in a certain way, because that could affect our smooth transitions, our movements from point A to point B musically, and those type of things. I think these are things that we hardly really ever proactively treat them, but we only treat them once there was a problem. And I think we should be able to really lean towards getting those things accurate and right. I've seen in many instances where even when we are doing recordings, there's a tendency to relax, and what we must never forget is that the engineer as well is also performing at some point. He's also part of the performance, is also part of the presentation, just as much as the singer is. So let's not make that mistake of ignoring them. So the engineer, his duty in terms of music production, in terms of final product, he will then be involved in the capturing of the music, mixing of the music after the project has been recorded, and mastering the music after the project has been recorded. That is what an engineer would be involved in, and his real mandate is to make sure that we sound even cleaner and better than we thought we sounded on the day. So we've got to make sure we sound really good. So the engineer has got a very he's there before the event, and he's there at the end of the event, because he's very important in capturing the moment and delivering the moment properly. So if the engineer is not really correctly in sync, correctly in the correct picture, understanding the picture correctly, if he's not invested in achieving the ultimate goal that we want to achieve, the engineer could mess us up. We could lose the projects or the moment, really, if we're not careful. So all that being said, and I'm done. I know I've been talking for a long time. All that being said, the point is we are all a team, and we need to appreciate each other's responsibilities and each other's roles. But we are all worshippers in our own way, and we are worshiping with the gifts that we have, and nobody is less important than the other. And I know that I haven't touched deeply into what each role does, but I hope I have set out a bit of an outline that you can look into, so that we can understand each other's roles. But we're all a team, and if that team loses its grip or loses its focus on where we're supposed to be going, the result is that frustration will find its way through different departments, different elements of the team, all the way until the last person. And unfortunately, the person that would be compromised highly would be the person that's standing and facing the people and singing or playing the instrument. Those people would finally receive the last punch, all because one or two elements of the puzzle have been compromised, and it's important that we keep everybody in the same pool, and we are really focused. I thank you. I would have wanted to handle a little bit more on singers and musicians, but let me open up to questions, and we can take it from there. Thank you so much for this opportunity. I talked too long.
Thank you so much, Joel. So, wow. It was deep, short and brief. Time for questions. Anyone has a questions, please feel free to unmute yourself and just ask your question. Any questions?
I like what I have a question about what you were talking about regarding people who may have difficulties kind of performing a song. I think it's interesting that you said that, because I have conversations with my pastor regularly where he's like, oh, you should put so-and-so on the team. And I'm like, I don't know if I've ever heard them sing before. And then, like, you know, of course, if you give them the opportunity, and it's frustrating for most people who are who are listening. So I guess, how would you provide maybe alternative opportunities to people? Or can you think of some examples in which you might have deferred somebody to a different but still valuable part of the team that maybe not be so vocal?
Well, I've seen many different ways of working with that. There's quite a few options. But the first most important thing that I've seen, or let me, in my few experiences with pastors, I have seen that the first most important thing is to make sure that the worship leader is well connected with the pastor. That relationship needs to be very strong. It needs to be very transparent. It needs to be very healthy. One of the things that comes up a lot is that the pastor has great intentions of making sure that the church or the worship team, or the really, let me really rather say the church. The church is a great place for grooming and nurturing and so on and so forth. But the stage cannot be that place. He has to understand that the stage is a final point of a matured or a nurtured sound already, or a nurtured person already. It cannot be a place where we test and try. One of the examples, or should I say the ways of dealing with it, I've seen a church that does that works with auditioning people annually. I worked with a church where we auditioned people every January. We open it up for auditions the whole of January, and in those auditions, we did. If you made it through the auditions, we didn't take everybody. We took a percentage of that, and the percentage would have been based on really good singers or musicians, really good ones versus the not so good but great potential. And the ones with great potential then would be thrown into the second half of the year to say you've got 6 months to gear yourself up and come back and re-audition. What it does, what that energy does, it helps firstly for people to respect the position they're in, that once you know that once you've made it into the worship team, it's not something to be taken for granted. You worked your way into it. You struggled into it, and those are people that will not give you problems with regards to late coming and not checking the work before time. Those people know that they worked themselves into that position. That's one. The second option I've seen that I've worked at the church where we worked on putting people on probation. So every January, it's our month to take in new singers or new musicians. But those people that have been suggested to come in, that have been called in to join, are part of the worship team for the next 4 to 6 months, but they're not on stage with us. So they need to be in those rehearsals. They need to keep coming in those rehearsals, and we are watching them. If we give them two or three, strikes, however we plan it, but they know that they don't just deserve to be on stage. They've got to work their way through. I think that works and helps to solve problems in the future, because in the future you will get people that are starting to slack and go slow and feel very entitled and feel they know that you brought them in because you needed them, and so they make your progress very slow. But if people understand that they worked their way into it, and there's a good chance that next January somebody else can kick them off, you stand a good chance of having a very strong and committed team. There's many few options, but one of the most important things for me, or if I should say the most important thing, is that the relationship between the worship leader and the pastor has to be strong, so that he can understand your vision to the worship team.
Well answered. Marissa, you answered on that.
Yes, thank you. That's very helpful.
Yeah. No, it's actually the question that I had as well, because especially being some churches are a bit smaller and not that advanced, and you don't have a big team of worship team members as to choose from, and sometimes you just have to deal with the 10 that you have also. And that's a similar question that I had as well, because I know at one point how this issue was dealt with somebody who's vocally not there, but the passion is really there, for worship and so on. And it was so that the engineers solved it by just turning the the microphone bit down, so that they can be in the choir, but the discord cannot be, heard. So it happens a lot.
And that's true. That happens. I mean, that happens everywhere with everybody. But you see, we are not solving the issue. We're actually making it worse.
Yeah.
You see, when you're muting the person and you're dropping the person's volume, number one, you are planting a seed of a lack of confidence, because he or she knows what you guys are doing. She's very well aware of the fact that she is not in sync with everybody else. And she knows that there's some kind of a conspiracy around her that is meant to kind of sabotage her microphone. She's well aware of that. And so you're hitting her confidence. You are hurting her spiritually, because these are people that are supposed to demonstrate love to her. But instead, she's feeling, locked, a bit, corner on her own. So now what that does then is that she's not going to leave the group. She will stay, but with a bad attitude. She's likely to stay with an attitude that says, well, until they say something, I'm not going to leave. and she might stay there for the next 10 years, but she's not growing because she's there with the wrong attitude. And that is a sort of a disease that we all have as musicians, because we have a small problem of it's not really looking down at each other, but we value each other based on the skill that we have. And the most skillful guy is the most loved guy. The most skillful singer is the most loved singer, or that person gets more attention. But we're not building a team in that sense. We're not building a healthy team. So we need to hit it straight. We need to hit straight to the source. The source being, you're not able to carry this. You're not much of a singer, but we're here to help you. We're gonna make this work. I've heard cases where we would get a guy who does not sing very well, but he's really committed. So we'd put him in the middle. Whenever there's a so what we do, we get the guy to stand in the middle, and on his right is a very strong singer, a very good male singer, and on his left is a very good male singer. And we insist they must stay with him throughout our rehearsals, that's their responsibility. But you're building a little bit of confidence there. You're building a little bit of a know-how. He then can hear himself not really sinking in with everybody. But if it's done because it's done with love, he knows that, but these guys are here to, pick me up and to lift me and get me right.
I think Lisa has just dropped off the call. I think Jay has a question, and I also seen Mosa has a hand up. So Jay, can you have your questions?
I'm back, sorry.
Welcome back.
Jay, we can't hear you. You have to unmute yourself.
Oh my gosh. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah. I'm not a very good engineer. Okay, so I was going to ask a question in regards to what you said concerning a production and the roles of the parties involved in the production, and you mentioned something about the visionary of the song and producers and stuff like that, and what their roles are. So my question really was, can you be a visionary of a song, but someone else produce it?
Can you be a visionary of a song and somebody else produce it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think the understanding there would be that when the producer, okay, so let me put it this way then. For you to be the visionary of the song, firstly, we want to assume that you have the song written already. Either somebody wrote it already, or you wrote it yourself. But when I say visionary of the song, what I'm talking about is that you will design correctly as to who should sing the song. Is it going to be a male singer? Is it going to be a female singer? Is she supposed to sing loud or soft? Is she meant to scream at the end of the song, pick it up, and so you kind of painting the picture correctly for the people that are going to receive it. So already that's production work. Already that's production work, because that then means now you will need to go and find the elements that are important. You're going to need to go and find that drama that you thought of when you heard the song, the ideas that they have are in line with what you think the song needs. So in that sense, you now already have already started on production. So the vision of the song is fully the responsibility of a producer. It's before it gets to the music director, who's going to actually do the actual work, who's going to put the music together, who's going to make the sound that has been communicated to him, is going to actually put it together. A lot of the times, the relationship between the music director and the producer has to be really strong, because they need to hear each other and understand each other's language, because the producer in most instances would know how to handle an instrument so that he can communicate properly to the music director, who's going to actually get the job done. So for the producer to be able to say, look, I want guitar to sound, I want an acoustic guitar to sound in this fashion, so that it must be able to accommodate this person who's going to sing this. He has to be able to communicate that to the music director, because the music director may not understand just a verbal, I want an acoustic guitar. The acoustic guitar could do wonders of things.
I think also, to add on to this, to your point, Joe, sorry, I'm not stealing your thunder. One thing I would want to say also is, it's important that we understand who does what in a production. For example, an engineer is just an engineer. His job is to ensure that he captures the cleanest sound you can capture. And in bigger production, your engineer could be your producer, but in bigger productions, most of the times your engineer is not your producer. And once you understand that, okay, so you have an engineer, then you have a producer who then does, and then you have a music director, and then you have your worship leader who's doing all these type of things. Once you understand what the layers are in these bigger productions, you then realize, where you're falling into place. And, I always, regardless of whatever production I'm working on, I always just find where I belong, navigate all these things, know where I belong, and I only comment at the point where I realize, okay, my opinion is important here. This is just not sounding right. I just need to ask, so it's understanding the navigations of that.
So I think, because one of the problems we're having is technology, okay? Terminology, in the sense that, yes, I do agree with you that the producer is the visionary of the song and knows, has a vision of what the end product should sound like, and should have an idea of what to employ to achieve that. So is it possible for a producer not to be a musician that's an instrumentalist? That's what I mean. So is it possible for a vocalist to be the producer of a song, and try to, and how do they then translate that song to the music director? How do they interpret the vision to that music director? So that's really my question. Can you be, say, a vocalist that you're not a musician, and you've got the song, and you wanna create this song, you wanna create this track, but obviously you need to employ so A and B and C to be able to do this for you. So would you still be the producer of that song? I know I'm just asking about terminology here, crazy, but
yes.
Before Joe comes in,
important for us to know.
Okay, before Joe comes in, let me introduce myself. Sorry, I came in late. My name is Edwin from Zambia. Involved in music production as well, and worship as at my place of worship. I've produced a number of artists locally here in Zambia, and touched a little bit of artists outside Zambia. But to answer your question, Jay, I would want to add to what Solomon and Joe explained on production. And that was clearly very, very important for us to understand. But Jay's concern is I think the terminologies that we're using. And you could be right. I think, let me answer it in twofold. Being a producer and the visionary of the songs, they are two different offices, for lack of a better term, but intertwined. I'll tell you why. For instance, I have this, I go by a motto to say, as a producer, my role is to navigate and direct you with exactly what you've envisioned in the song, but using my expertise. What I mean by that is you would obviously have a vision of the song. You will, I do not know about you guys, but I have my church people here who would actually come with a spiritual mentality of how they conceive the song. So I dreamt this song, or God gave me this song in a dream and it was going like this, okay? So sometimes it may not make musical sense. So they are coming to you as a producer. So you want to understand them and kind of like understand where they're going with what they want to have at the end of the day. So what you're doing essentially is getting their thoughts, navigate them properly, put them in the right direction to say, okay, is eventually what you are saying is the vision of your song should sound like this. But for this song to sound like this, we need A, B, C, D in place. And when they start now understanding the relationship starts growing, then they start leaving that role to you entirely. And this is why you've seen with some artists, if you look at the back of the credits of the project, you would have the actual composer of the song doing either production work or saying co-producer, or rather they would give me a role of a co-producer, because essentially they're the ones who came up with the vision, the bigger vision. I was just directing them using my expertise to say this is the direction they should go and bring in whatever I need to bring on the plate. So they would have themselves as producers, and then they will have me as a co-producer, or vice versa. Why? It's because we want to qualify that question that you asked earlier, Jay, to say it's very possible that yes, you could have a vision of the song and possibly have a direction of the song in terms of the production, but you need an expertise to help you navigate, right? So I think that was the first question, and I was just trying to add to what Joe and Solomon essentially had answered. But I think it also helps with the second question that you've asked, because yes, I've seen people struggling where they go to this musician or the producer, for instance, they have this bigger picture and this vision of the song, brilliant vision, you know, but because I am a producer and I am, you know, you pay me for this, I squash everything that you've come up with and I'm implementing what I think should work. You know what I mean? Without justifying myself. So you find that other artists have gone home injured because they had this picture, they heard the song clearly in their vision, and they wanted to flow in a certain way. But because they respect me and because I'm paid a lot of money, so they want to respect that. But at the end of the day, they go home feeling like I didn't actually do what I felt like doing. My submission.
Thank you so much, Edwin. I think you nailed it. I think you nailed it. What I should bring up again for Jay is that I think what is important for me to bring across to you is that the importance of knowing an instrument in this context, really. And I think what I'm trying to bring across is that the communication between the vision and the execution of the song will be frustrated if the communication is not clear. So what Edwin is saying is that if the singer comes and the singer has a clear picture of what they want to bring across, but they don't know how to explain it musically, even I, the producer, may not be able to bring it across according to what they have in mind. So the visionary, yes, can be separate from the producer, but it will frustrate the process. So what it speaks to then is the singer or the artist or the person that has the vision of the song will then have to now figure out who can hear me, who's a good producer that can translate me clearly to the direction of what I asked, what I've been aiming for. So I think with what Solomon said and what Edwin said, because Solomon is also showing another angle to it, to say, remember, there's cases where one person operates in 3-4 different offices. That same person is engineering, that same person is producing, that, and that same person is arranging the music. That same person is actually sometimes even singing, sometimes wrote the song. But it's not limited to one person. Those are so many different offices and so many different angles to appreciate.
Yeah. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. We have a question from Mosa. Hope you answer, Jay.
Say that again.
Hi, everyone.
Hello.
Yes, my song is about songwriting. My question, rather, is about songwriting. Generally, how many times would you recommend working on a song before you can say, okay, we are done with the song? And the reason I'm saying that is because in my encounters with you, when I'll speak about 2 songs. There was one song that we had written and it needed a vamp. It didn't have a vamp at that time. And we actually created the vamp in the studio. And your words were, the vamp must not be bigger than the song. I remember that clearly. And my question from that would be, in songwriting, what is the aim? What should be the bigger part? What do you want people to remember? What do you want to stick with people? And then the other one, yes. So it's those 2 questions. What should be bigger in the song, and how many times would you recommend basically working on the same song for you to say, I think we've reached a point where we can actually record the song?
Okay, I'm going to butt into this question. The reason why is because of your relationship. I'm going to ask Joel to because you guys have worked together. I would love to hear from, I think Mtamna is on the call, and then Joel will kind of summarize it, so he will come in at the end. So let's hear something. Let's hear a producer who has not worked with any of you. Is that okay?
Okay.
Sure. Yeah.
Let me start maybe by a small one. Ideally, I think it's the whole picture of what you want to communicate to the world out there. So the objective of you writing the song should be clear. If you want to communicate a message, to say this song, the message I'm communicating is ABC, okay? That should essentially be the main thing. Okay, so now how do I communicate this message is the process. Okay, what will make this message relevant? What will make this message communicated to? I mean, encoded really. So that is the process that kind of helps to say, okay, so what parts do I need to add to communicate this message? For me, I think that is the most important point for a songwriter. It's more or less like, you know, look, if you are cooking in the kitchen, for instance, you're baking a cake, okay? You have a whole list of ingredients, okay? But when we're eating that cake, all we will say is the cake was nice. Okay, we will not say, oh, so how many eggs, oh, were they duck eggs or chicken eggs? We will not go in those details, okay? At the end of the day, it's the cake that we wanted to bake and to deliver to the people. So how they receive it, essentially, will be the major thing that we actually had initially to say we wanted to bake a cake. But, oh, thank God, they enjoy, they love the cake. Why? Because we added this, we added milk, we added butter, we added all that stuff. You know what I mean? So I think for me that essentially should be pretty much the pattern. And there are a lot of ways to go around this. My submission.
Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm a latecomer as well. I actually just came from driving 400 Ks. I've been on the road for like the last 6 hours, and I couldn't miss this one because it's very close to my heart. But my contribution would be to, I think Edwin has said a lot of very important things. My theory about songwriting is very simple, is communicate what you want to say. You know, my dad's a teacher, and my dad always used to use this phrase, he would say, mean what you say and say what you mean. And that's always been my philosophy when I write a song, is what message am I trying to put across? Now, when we start getting a little bit more technical and talking about when do we know when a song is finished, I think when you are satisfied that the message that we're trying to pull out is very clear. If we're trying to talk about, say, faith, in the way that the song is structured, do you feel that that message is put across? So the message is number one. Then, of course, you begin to look at, in terms of the structure of the song, the melodies and the harmonies and whatnot. Do they work in terms of how they are put, you know, in terms of how they are, what's the word I can use? In the way that you arrange them. Does it make sense for you to have a 2-part harmony? Does it make sense for you to have a 3-part harmony? And all those things, and you begin to look at the nitty-gritty. And Joe, by the way, I love that thing that you say about the vamp should not be bigger than the song. I think that I've never heard it that way, but it really resonated with me. It makes a lot of sense, because the vamp is essentially like what you'd think of in the speech to say, in conclusion, you know, and it's essentially summarizing everything that you're trying to do and you're trying to communicate and stuff. So that one for me makes a lot of sense. And the most important thing in the song would be the chorus, the hook. What you have to make sure that you add enough in that chorus to be able to become the thing that you remember. You know, that it stresses the point that even if you didn't really listen to too much of the verses, you didn't really listen to too much of the other stuff, just from the chorus, you will be able to figure out what the song is talking about and the message that is being communicated. All these other things are just an amplification of what the chorus is, essentially, you know. And the vamp, someone is asking, what is the vamp? Is the vamp would be, what would be the word for it? Maybe Joel will throw in something. No, the bridge is different. The vamp is the thing that you like sort of add towards the end to sort of like emphasize what you've been talking about the whole time, you know. So yeah. I want to think of a song. I want to think of a song that's I can say that's the vamp. The person that likes doing that a lot is Hezekiah Walker. You know what I mean? So he'll sing, and then at the end he'll add something that's sort of just like, you know, it's like a rephrase that just like emphasizes everything. You know, I'm trying to think of a song, but like, you know, whenever you're on the spot, like all these things just go away from you. But yeah, Joe, save me here.
Is it a song like "Power Belongs to God"?
How does
I'm
power
trying to remember
belong?
the end.
Power belongs to God. Oh, I forgot the. Where is it?
There is nothing belongs to God. Nothing.
Yes, that's the vamp. Yeah.
Yeah.
There is
Oh, Solomon came through.
Thank you.
Solomon. I think Musa's questions were really well handled. I wouldn't really add much to it. And I think what I don't remember the song Musa is accusing me of. She's
Our Father who art in heaven.
There you go.
Yeah. You see, I think what is very important in that message that the vamp shouldn't be bigger than the song is that, especially in gospel, we have a tendency of chasing after the vamp and forgetting to put meat to the song, to put content onto the song itself. So you can even you'll even hear it from the songwriter that they really scribbled through everything else, and they were just looking forward to that last thing that they wanted us to hear, and unfortunately, it compromises the song, or if we will never enjoy the vamp if we don't know what the meat was, the content was.
I have a question myself. I know there may be other people who have questions, because I know that we're almost running out of time. I don't know how long people want to stay for, because I think this can go on forever.
Yeah.
And this is coming from my experience, and the thing which really is moving me, motivating me, and with all the guys. And thank you. It's really amazing. You know, who would have known that I'll have all these different aspects, all you people from different parts of the world and different parts, you know, having this conversation and throwing it in and realizing that Edwin and Mutamna in Zambia, and Munetisi and Joe in South Africa, you know, and Melissa, whatever country she's in on whatever day, are going through the same things and having similar conversations. And it's just amazing to see this. And I thank God for this opportunity. But one thing, my question is more about my question is more about live events. And as we move on to, because I think I really want to see an environment where a lot more people are moving out of studio and doing their things live. And Joe, you having directed the Metro FM event, having directed with me, and all those type of issues you have been through, what is your advice to an artist who wants to venture out of the studio and wants to do their live production? Because I think unless we glean that type of information from you, I think that's a very important thing. You know, what should they look into? What should they consider?
I think it's very important to exercise before you take the actual marathon. You've got to have the stamina for it. You've got to be able to be prepared to handle yourself very well for a full 2 hour, sometimes 3 hour session on stage. The difficulty with that transition is that when you have never really exercised that possibility of being on stage that long, what happens is you may not understand how to line up your songs correctly, how to handle your energy from point A to point B to point C correctly. Because what happens is this, and this is very common, and I think I should just let out this secret, is that we have a number of musicians or singers that have done live recordings in our country that would have had to come back to the studio and fix a lot more, because the actual recording went terrible. You find that the singer can only handle the first 3 songs. By the 4th song, her voice is cracking. She's lost it already, and we still have another 14, 15 other songs to go. That transition then speaks to, you need to, number one, spend more time on stage, whether be it in your church or in other platforms to perform, but you got to get that stamina right. Number 2, I insist on my artists to excuse myself, and I'm hearing some noises here. Sorry. I insist on my artists that are going to live recordings to first get into the studio, so that you can hear the shock of your voice and get used to your voice being translated back to you. It's important, because then you'll understand accuracy, you'll understand projection correctly. Because if you're going to go on stage before you've exercised that part of hearing your voice over and over and maintaining stamina within that aspect, what normally happens is that when you first bring out, because what you should remember is that singers will normally go on stage with the picture of what they've seen before. So they've seen as a particular artist that has done live recordings, and they're modeling a certain image or a certain sound that they're interested in. Now, but the problem with that is that when you first go up on stage, you've loaded yourself up with a lot of pressure, and you're not clear-minded, especially on your first recording. You're not very clear-minded as to what really is required for this thing to work out well. So if you are unfortunate, you don't have a lot of you don't have a very good team around you that can support you, from music directors to producers and stuff, you might find yourself in an island that is very difficult to come out of. So I say that to say, number one ingredient for me, you've got to do this thing over and over before you actually do the live recording. Find yourself to perform. Find yourself platforms to perform in. Get yourself into the studio to do as much recordings as possible, even if it's just for pre-production, even if it's not albums that are going to be recorded. But hear yourself over and over, especially as a singer. Hear yourself over and over and fix yourself. The more you're hearing that, is the more you're getting confidence built up and so on. So I think those two things are very, very crucial in my book.
Yeah, that's answered really well. I would add also, and this is not in terms of, this is in terms of my experience when it comes to the events I have filmed, and that is, get the different elements of production in early. Don't get the best. Get people who are available to start talking with you 3 months before the event, or who are interested in what the venue looks like, the acoustic sounds are 3 months before the event, because it is better to be prepared than to get the best people who show up on the day. People who are not familiar with what you want to do. People who haven't gone through your dress rehearsal. So get people into your production as early as possible so that you can start having these conversations early on. The earlier you can do this, the better it is. And that's one thing I've reached a point where sometimes I request card drawings of the stage so I can know where I'm going to put things. So I keep on asking those type of questions to ensure that I don't mess up, because it's very possible to go in there and you mess up, you know, and also have relationships, you know, with people, because especially live productions, they're a marathon, you know. It starts with pre-production, then the actual day, and then there's still 6 more months before something does happen. And if you don't have good relationships with people, you start having issues, you know, you start having issues. And you find that, I mean, I have projects which are still on my computer, which should have been released a year ago, and they're still sitting there. They still haven't, we filmed them. It was a nice live event, but maybe because all of a sudden the guy mixing the sound is not talking to us anymore because of relationships. So I just wanted to add those bits in. And I think we'll close the meeting very, very soon, but I still want some more people to ask questions. You know, please ask as many questions as you want. We'll keep this going for the next 10 minutes. And I think then we'll have to close because we've been going on for a while now. So I don't know.
To add on,
Mm.
yeah, if you'd allow me, I wanted to add on to the issue of live recording. And what I'm noticing, there seems to be a gravitation, particularly for us in the gospel music scene, to do more live events. Okay, and just because we are seeing it work for other people, doesn't mean it's gonna work for us, because we have to understand the stages that they went through, the level of preparation that they went through. I think what has become very apparent to me these days is how important the pre-production is. If you cannot do that aspect right, it really messes up your live event. And so we've had events that we have recorded and they sound, you know how sometimes you sound in church when you just bum rushed onto the stage and then you just started singing and you recorded that, and you know that sound, and you're listening to it and you're like, this is how we've seen so many recordings like that. And so I think that it is important that you do the pre-production. If you have access to a studio, go into the studio, begin to create your click tracks, begin to lay whatever you can lay, maybe some backing vocals for some things and whatnot, but do that groundwork first before you go and do the live event, because live events have a tendency to have so many unplanned things happening, and they can be a distraction. And so if you don't have your stuff, you know, correctly, it can really throw you off, and you find that the whole event you are singing off key, the whole event, everything is not in sync, it's not on time, you know, and so on and so forth. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Just to add on to what Joe talked about on stamina, I mean, there's one discussion we had about a particular artist whose name I refuse to mention for the fact that this is being recorded. And Joe told me one day to say, do you know what? This guy hasn't got the stamina to do a whole event. And I failed to understand what he was talking about. But then I went to edit, you know, we had asked him, he performed the song really big at the beginning of one event. And we had asked him to repeat the song because we needed the song done again. And I could see how he had lost the wind. And he didn't do that many songs, you know, he had lost the wind by the time he reached that song. So having that stamina to say, I'm gonna stand there and do the Tina Turner thing in high heels for like an hour, you know what I mean? It takes time. I mean, Hillsong, it's a shame Panji is not here from Hillsong. We are cooking something with guys from Hillsong to come on to one of these events as soon as we can. I'll let you know how that goes. But they seem to do their things in conferences. So it's not, you think that this event is happening on one day. It's not. It's happening over a few recordings, and they're going back in the studio, iterating. And at least them, you know, if you go to Hillsong in South Africa, or you go to Hillsong in London, or Hillsong in New York or Australia, they're following the same hymn sheet. You know, you're doing exactly the same thing. It's not like gospel music. So it's easy for you to do those type of recordings. So you need to remember all those type of things. So I just want to say, are there any more questions? Because, yeah, we need to keep this going.
I think Lisa had a whole bunch of questions that she had written out. Maybe you could just scroll through them and.
Oh, she had questions, did she?
Yeah.
Joe, can you see the questions?
Let me see. We handled what is a vamp. How do you know that a genre of music is right for you? I don't think we handled that. Okay, well, how do you know that the genre of music is right for you? Well, I think that will be determined by a few things. One, some people are really great songwriters, but not for themselves. They write really good songs for other people, but not songs that they can really perform well. At the same time, some people write really well for themselves and not able to write for other people. But a genre really, for me, I think we live in a time now that we are really, really exploring. I mean, it's not as rigid and traditional as it used to be, that when you're an R&B singer, you only sing R&B in a particular way. I see everybody crossing over and adding this fusion with this and that, and it becomes limiting to yourself if you say to yourself, what genre of music am I singing, or what genre of music am I good at? Because genre is really style, and I think the beauty of where we are now with the internet and the accessibility of content really is that you can always get an element of metal music in a hip hop song with gospel lyrics, and you're not limited to anything really. I would really not even encourage somebody to really close themselves up and say I am a jazz musician, or I am a rock musician, or a pop singer. I would open my mind to what am I trying to communicate at this point, or what do I sound like? What do I want to sound like? With the help of people around you, good people that can arrange music well. The sound is really it's style. It's really style, and I think you can get away with a lot of stuff if you work with a good team.
Yeah,
I don't know if anybody wants to add anything on that, because I see there's another question.
Yeah, you have answered that pretty well. One thing I would want to say is there was a guy who just was working with me, and he just come off The Voice. I think on the year, the UK version of The Voice, on the year we had Rita Ora, will.i.am, and Tom Jones. And he came off The Voice, and he went into more presenting of events more than singing. So we got to talking, because I'd worked with him before. I'd done a couple of music videos for him when I still did a lot of secular stuff. Now I'm mostly involved in Christian stuff. But he came home and we were talking, and I told him, I was working on Cardiff Night of Worship with Jay, who's just disappeared on me right now. And he was like, yeah, he wants to do a gospel song. And I realized that one very important thing is it's possible, like Joe has said, for you to switch genres, but what we call Christian CML or gospel sound comes from a relationship with the Holy Spirit, and not everybody can do that type of thing. So what I did was I invited him, come over to the night of worship, come see the recording, come see what I'm going through, so that he can understand that it's just more, what we do is a relationship with Christ, and it's not, it is entertaining. I never say it's not entertaining. It is entertaining, but it's not meant for entertainment. It's not, it's our worship. It is our attitude towards what we do. For me, that's more important than genre or what you stick to, or or this and that. You know what I mean? It's that attitude of your close relationship with Christ. I hope that answers your question. I think we can deal with one more question. Let me answer the question is, how do I know my song has the it? Feedback is the food of champions. Ask people, and ask people who, you know, there's some people who are your cheerleaders who will say anything you do is good, but ask people for their honest opinion. Get feedback from people who you would trust and will tell you, yeah, this is just not it. Don't try me because I'm just too brutal. That's my problem. I ask for forgiveness because I'm just too brutal. I think there's one more question which Lisa has posted there. If you can answer it, Joe, and we can end the meeting.
Well, I think we handled it already. How do I tell a team member?
Oh, yeah, we've answered that. Yeah, that's
I
fine.
think we handled that. Yeah.
We have answered that. Thank you very much for all of you coming in. It's good to see all of you. Stick it. It's been almost 2 hours. I know I see some people from Botswana, South Africa, from the UK, from different parts. It's really, really good that you were able to join us for this. We're having one more next week with Noah Robinson. Please Google him. Listen to the song he did with Leland called Rain. It's on Integrity Music. It's really beautiful. And then come and join us as we delve deeper into worship. And then we're going to take a break for 3 weeks. I'm still debating with Mutamna on a date, which he wants August, and I can't do any more dates in August. So I'm hoping to have him, you know, I'm putting him on the spot now. I'm hoping to have him talk about songwriting on the 6th of September. So provisionally put that into your. I haven't told him yet, but he told me August, and I'm looking at August dates, trying to squeeze it in, and it's just not working for me. So thank you very much, guys. It's just amazing to see people from different parts of the world talk about these issues. Invite your friends. The more diverse we are, the more we're able to represent Christ in a more diverse way. Let's continue asking questions. Also, guys, these are our chances to collaborate cross-country, cross everywhere. Let's get back to, I'm gonna post Lisa's number in the chat so that if you need to get in touch with anybody so that you can, we can start linking up, you know, and send emails too, because I hate WhatsApp groups. I absolutely hate WhatsApp groups because people start posting irrelevant things. But let's collaborate. Let's work together. Let's work on projects. This is our chance to do something which has never been done before. It's our chance to put in our resources, you know, with Mutamna all the way from here. I mean, jump in the studio with Joe in South Africa. Let's get a different sound on your music, you know. Musa, go work with Edwin. He's right there. You know, let's create these ties and let's create these networks, you know, because this can't be the end, you know. So thank you very much. I'll just pray and close. Thank you very much for all of this. Thank you very much. Lord Jesus Christ, I just want to thank you that all things work together for good for they who love the Lord. I thank you, Lord Jesus Christ, for what you have done, what you have established, Lord Jesus Christ. I thank you, Lord Jesus Christ, for the worshipers and people, everybody who's involved in worship in any way. I thank you. I pray all these things in your precious name. Amen. Have a great, thank you very much. Have a great day. Thank you for joining, all of you. See you next week on Sunday, same time.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Look at this for Zoe. It's only 40.